Welcome back to Date Night, your deep, playful, and practical guide to dating and relationships so that you can create a love that lasts. I'm your host, Laurel House. Today, we're talking about romance cons. I call them RomCons. Plus, your need to take time for yourself so that you can be better within your relationship. And I'm going to let you in on a lot of my personal experiences and missteps, which helped me to get to a place of understanding you and what you're going through. But first, because we're on a date, right? Let's catch up. How are you? I'm calm today. I'm feeling a little more rooted and grounded and less like I'm pushing outward because I got to really indulge in my introverted side this week, which was necessary. I know that introvertedness runs in my family. My dad is actually also an introvert. What I need to have a simultaneously calm and invigorated and creative mind is being alone, in silence, in my garden, or getting a massage, or taking a bath. In that space of quiet, my mind is alive, but it's not obsessing or frantically racing. It is actively coming up with concepts. My husband, on the other hand, needs a different type of space to calm his mind. He likes to ride his bike or go on long drives, go in the pool, or indulge in his boyhood love of DJing on his turntables in the garage, which I'm sure my neighbors love. So this morning I was thinking, are you okay having your two different spaces to re-enliven? Or do you need to do that together? I see so many relationships where one or both abandoned those areas of interest that satisfy that need. And when that space is abandoned, so is the ability to tap into that place within themselves. And sure, some habits and activities need to be abandoned. In a relationship, you need to make some changes in order for the relationship to thrive. But if it's what gives you calm and peace and inspiration, then I feel like you can't abandon that. You can't stop that. So why are you? Is it because you want to spend all your time with your other, or because your other doesn't want you to have that time without them? Or you don't want your person to spend time without you because you're jealous, insecure, needy. Isn't that the initial attraction at the beginning of a relationship, that we were interested in and inspired by our differences? We learned from them, their ideas and attitudes. They were interesting, they were magnetizing, and it made us want more. Yes, shared interests are important, and so is being inspired and learning from your partner's differences. We go away from each other to do our separate things and return to each other feeling renewed, enlivened, more excited about your person and your life and your relationship. If you're in a state of sadness and depression, you aren't going to bring much life and light to the relationship. And I personally know this because I have been there on both sides. And although it might be hard when your partner goes and does their thing, especially if you don't have your established thing yet, it's healthy and even necessary for the relationship to thrive. Because when you and or they are thriving, then you as a couple can thrive together. I've seen relationships end because the individuals are sad or bored or depressed or feel like they need to go find themselves, or because one feels controlled or like the other is too needy of their partner and expecting their partner to make them happy. This is one of the reasons that I suggested that my husband go on a road trip with our son, because they love to go and drive. But me, I needed to be alone. I don't want to take a road trip with my child to reset. I want to go to a spa retreat alone. In fact, I do that frequently. Knowing a person's needs and introvert versus extrovert style, plus what that means to them and how it shows up in their life, is important first date conversation, because you might unknowingly be triggering someone or causing anxiety or making them feel like you're not interested because you want to be alone, when really you need to be alone. So for example, FaceTime. And even more than that, showing up at my house. It feels like an invasion of my space and it stresses me out. Even my own family showing up unexpectedly cause me stress. It is ridiculous, I know. I need to mentally prepare to see people. I know my schedule and I prepare for it. And I am on if I have an interaction at all with anyone outside of the people who live in my house. FaceTime is tough because you might want to feel more connection when you talk. So you thoughtlessly and without malice or question, you FaceTime someone. And while it feels connective for the other person, for me, it feels stressful. And it's not about having to have makeup on or that I have a messy house behind me. It's about the energy that I give. I have two different sides to me. I'm kind of like this quiet blob when I'm alone, and I have all this energy that I push out when I'm with someone. Even talking on the phone with someone, which is why I prefer to text. I can stay in my blob like a natural state. And that being said, I do also sometimes like to talk on the phone and even FaceTime and even see people sometimes because I also need that connection sometimes too. And it's easy to get stuck in that cycle of blobbing. So I kind of have to check myself. More than an introvert and extrovert, it's about cultures. And all of these are important conversations to have at the very beginning of the dating process so that you can create a baseline of understanding. I remember when I was a single mom and my son was a baby and I was dating someone who would FaceTime me all the time. And it made me feel like my nervous system was out of whack. It felt like he was so needy of me and I just needed to breathe. So I would cancel on him all the time because I constantly felt overwhelmed and I needed to not be needed. I think this is amplified for single moms who have young children. So when this guy would FaceTime and I actually answered, I would be annoyed. And he didn't understand my constant state of overwhelm and annoyance, and it created frustration on both ends. And so I ended it, and I felt instant relief. Most people who don't know me well think I am an extrovert because I'm good at being out and social. It's interesting, the person who you present or who people think they know versus the truth of what your actual nature is. What's difficult is it can lead a date, which turns into a romantic relationship partner, to feel like they've been bait and switched, when really it's just another side of you that you're finally allowing them to see because you feel more comfortable with them. But how do you know? Which kind of brings me to this week's listener question that I received via DM on my Instagram at Laurel House. She asked to remain anonymous, but she said, I was talking to this guy online for a few weeks. He was so sweet and seemed incredibly interested in me. I will admit that things progressed quickly, and I even sent him sexy selfies, which he asked for. I frequently asked him for video calls, but there was always an excuse as to why he couldn't. Then he started asking me for money just to cover little emergencies, but then more and more. Every time I tried to pull away, he'd remind me of those sexy photos that I sent him. I felt trapped and afraid. Then one day, honestly, thankfully, he disappeared. What was that? Was he even real? So, Anonymous, I have a lot to say about this, but basically, you were RomConned. There's a sliding scale of RomCons from seemingly innocent little lies to downright criminal enterprise. The con can be emotionally damaging, financially draining, or just confusing. Being RomConned can be as simple as being misled with malicious or just false representations. It can mean being stood up, or maybe you're made to pay for an expensive dinner by a dine-and-dasher. Maybe they weren't who they said, or their intentions weren't what they led with. They could have convinced you to send them sexy selfies, then manipulate you with threats of distributing them down the line if you don't cooperate with their demands. And rom-coms can be much worse. It can even be life-devastating and even lethal. And there's also a psychological impact to being rom-conned. And what do the conners get out of it? Well, money, entertainment, sexual pleasure, satisfying a sad desire to hurt, belittle, or shame someone. Though, interestingly, some romance conners might not be intentionally trying to hurt you. They might mislead you to actually protect themselves. They're not even thinking about you or your feelings. Maybe they're insecure in their own way, someone who views themselves as unattractive or unlovable, which is a scenario frequently seen in the show Catfish, which is another type of rom-con. Maybe they really hope that their victim will truly fall for them once feelings are established and looks, lifestyle, or that unimportant, superficial, misled reality of them, those won't matter because what's real is what you feel. That's what they think, not considering that the foundation of the relationship and the feelings were initiated on a lie. Some romance conners are intentionally looking for victims who they see as easy targets because they come across as having low self-esteem, easily enticed, craving to be seen and loved. It might start with little lies, then limits are pushed and boundaries are crossed as they test what they can get away with. The criminal enterprises have scammers trained to get what they want, often using poetry, flowers, and other gifts to charm their victims, hooking their feelings, then pulling those heartstrings with stories of severe life circumstances, tragedies, death, and injuries that require immediate financial support. According to the FBI, the real criminals have this practice down to a science, having honed their skills, frequently using and rehearsing scripts that have a track record of getting the results, plus taking notes on their victims in order to keep track of the lies and better analyze their victims' areas of weakness in order to best manipulate and exploit them. Sometimes the goal is to bait them into being a transport mule of drugs, money, or illegal goods. And you believed that their promises, this relationship, or that they were real because you wanted it so badly that you ignored the red flags, or maybe just orange or yellow flags. So you dismissed inconsistencies, rushed in, and didn't ask the necessary questions or question the questionable stories or lack of stories. There are a few notorious rom-cons that have made it into mainstream media, like the Tinder swindler and Dirty John, who manipulated wealthy women to believe they were a variety of different successful identities only to scam them out of their money and worse. There's Paul Gonzalez, known as the Dine and Dash dater, who did the same. He was actually homeless and found vulnerable women on apps who he promised to take care of, shower with gifts, a beautiful life, and to have an amazing, extravagant dinner at which he would order multiple entrees like steak and lobster. Then he would get a call in the middle of dinner and take off, leaving the often single mom with the check that cost half her monthly rent. More than having to pay a bill that they were led to believe was a treat, it was the emotional damage, the distrust, the fear of dating moving forward that was the worst part. It was the embarrassment, shame, and insecurity that ensued. So here's a question. Is it the fault of dating apps that have caused a rise in rom-cons? What I love about apps is the opportunity to pre-qualify before a date. Some of those apps actually have those input as requirements in order to get on the app. The problem with apps is that a lot of people don't use those pre-qualifying steps because it takes time away from their goal, which is getting on a date. But for those who skip the steps of screening that are furnished by the apps and also established by the dater and supported by the app, you are missing out on a fantastic opportunity to have the app be your first line of defense. And you're ignoring the many different protections that the app has put in place for your protection and to increase the success and outcome of the app experience. It's just like the bar culture, where you meet someone, exchange a number, and immediately go on a date. There are conners out there. If you've been conned, I want you to know that you didn't do anything wrong. You were wronged. They were wrong. And it's sad that we can't blindly trust, give the benefit of the doubt, or assume the best. Rom-cons, big and small, are more common than you think, especially the micro-cons. As I said, I have personally been rom-conned from both apps and initial in-person communication of meeting in the real world. Honestly, it's impossible to avoid rom-cons completely because, especially when it comes to matters of the heart, and even if you're dating with my head-first dating strategy, people lie. And they'll go to great lengths to get what they want. But there are steps to take and awarenesses to have to minimize your chance. So what should you look out for when it comes to rom-cons from dating apps? Well, two things: perfection and fraudulent language. So perfection, well, their profile, be it on a dating site or other social media, seems too perfect. Photos are very sexy and sexual. There's immediate sexual tone in exchanges like sexting, asking for sexy selfies, sharing their sexy selfies. Their profile is empty or just vague. There's nothing interesting or different. Their photos feel off, inconsistent, or overly photoshopped. So how do you avoid it? Well, ask questions. They might not answer those questions, but you've got to try and ask. Then use your intuition, trust your gut, research the person's photos and profile using online searches to see if the image, name, or details have been used elsewhere. So what if you go on a date with someone else? Well, you don't think you're going on a date with someone else, but all of a sudden you show up and it's not the person who you thought you were going on a date with. So I went on a date with this guy. We had been communicating on an app. He seemed like he was really nice. He was handsome. We went out to this great fish place and we sat down and I thought, this didn't seem to be the person who I had been communicating with. So I said to him, I feel like your photos don't look exactly like you look in person. And he said, oh, yeah, I get that question a lot. The main person in the photo is my brother. He actually passed away. And I wanted to do a service to him where I allow him to be part of dating and have the experience of dating also, since he's never actually going to be able to do that. So I included him in all of my photos and I'm standing next to him in all of the photos. But yeah, the main guy in the photos is my brother. Like, okay, I mean, that's very nice of you to want to include your brother. But the fact is that you are the one who is dating, not, unfortunately, and very sadly, your brother. And while that story is definitely one that pulls the heartstrings, it's a rom-con. What I didn't like is that he felt that it was okay to create a foundation on lies without being upfront. And it made it so I didn't want to go out with him again. Another RomCon strategy is using certain and specific fraud language. So let me first say that you sometimes will hear these impassioned words and phrases, not because they're scamming you, but because they really do like you that much and they are struck by that chemical state, which is called chemistry. And it's truly making them believe that you are this magical made for them being. It's not necessarily a con. And then there are people who are methodically saying those things for the sole purpose of manipulating and scamming you. The difference is difficult to know. But here are a few things that a fraudster might say to pull you into their web. They immediately say that they feel like they trust you. You are soulmates. You are meant to be. They've never felt this way before. The thing is that in saying this, their goal is actually to elicit that same feeling in you. It's one of the strategies that I've talked about being the example of your expectations, creating an environment of safety and trust by putting themselves on the line first and making it feel enticing and safe for you to follow suit. They might make incredible promises and create this amazing possible reality of you guys together in the future. Or love bombing, which is one of the trendy dating terms, meaning being overly effusive about their affectionate feelings, which can quickly escalate to the intensity of a relationship. They can tell emotional sob stories that pull your heartstrings and manipulate you out of your money. They immediately ask to communicate offline via text to get your number. They might immediately want to meet up for a drink and some fun. The messages don't use the same language, words, style as their profile description. They have excuses, visual excuses. Well, I can't talk on video because of bad internet connection, or I'm too busy, or there's people around. They claim to be working and living far away, whether it's on the other side of the country or overseas, which doesn't mean that they're a fraud, because I have real clients who have actually lived overseas for a little while, and they are not rom-conners. They're just out of town for a while. They might always be canceling because of an emergency. They have a give-get. So if you give me this, you'll get this. You do meet, and then you have the physical experience with them, and then the con begins. So how do you avoid it? You call them out. Really? You trust me already? Why? Use the 3 H's. Date head first. Head first, then heart, then hormones. There's a scam that I've been seeing that you probably have as well, which is receiving a random text out of the blue from someone who doesn't actually know you. And they say, hey, I'm on my way. Or, hey, is now a good time to talk? And you say, wait a second, I don't know who this person is. So oftentimes you might just delete that, or you might respond and engage the person because you're confused. Well, one night I did engage that person. I was in a moment of weakness and I received a message from someone saying, hey, I'm running a little late, but I'll be there soon. And I said, I have no idea who you are. And they said, oh, I'm sorry. And they took a photo of themselves, apparently, at the barber shop. It seemed like a attractive, nice guy. And I thought, oh, I'm bored and kind of lonely right now. I'll just chat with this attractive, nice looking person. And so he and I started texting, just engaging about who we are. He told me he lived in Kansas City, Missouri. Oh my gosh, I used to live in Kansas City, Missouri. There were all of these things that were a little bit too similar to who I was or a life I used to live. So we started engaging in conversation for hours and then days. And he was sending me photos and asking me for photos, and I was sending him photos, and I felt like we're really getting to know each other. I know. Okay, you're probably sitting there like, Laurel, you've got to be kidding me. You actually engaged in this? I know. Okay? I am so ashamed that I did this because was he real? I have no idea. No idea. Because I would say, you know what? I think this is a RomCon. I want to have a video call. Oh, well, I can't right now. Okay, then send me a video of you saying my name. Well, I can't because whatever, but I'll send you a selfie. So he would send me photos and I would download the photos on my phone. And guess what? They didn't show up right now. They showed up as years ago because these aren't photos that just were taken. These are old photos. And I continued to call him out on it, and he continued to swear up and down that he was real. But then it was that he wanted to protect his privacy. And then it came out, well, he's in a relationship and he didn't want his partner to learn about me. And it just like lie after lie after lie until finally, and he didn't ask me for money. So what was it that he wanted? I don't know. I finally stopped engaging because it was a waste of my time. And I needed something real. But that type of scam also can extract money, can extract sexy photos, can do things that are very dangerous to you. So you need to be careful. Even if you're not on a dating app, you're not on Facebook, you're not on Instagram, you live a pretty private life, you can be scammed by the person who sends you a random text. Even being an introvert doesn't help you with this one. So my number one piece of advice is to slow down. Do not rush the pre-qualifying process. The process is there for a reason, your safety, and also so that you can get to know your potential date better before the date. And the process helps to save their time and protect their heart too, in case they are real and you're just not a match. The problem is that daters want to rush or to avoid the process, looking for the easy way to just get out there. And that's fine if your goal is to simply have more dates or have some empty fun. But if your goal is to have quality dates with people who you connect with and increase your chances of finding your match, you've got to pre-qualify first. There are other social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, even on video games, which is a trend. And of course, meeting people in person. So I met this guy on Facebook. He seemed really nice. We communicated for a couple of weeks and he wanted to go out on a date. He would talk about this incredible life that he lived, and he's an entrepreneur, and he works really hard, and we both felt like we were really similarly driven. So he said he wanted to meet up at a bar, so we went, and I thought it was interesting that I pulled up in Valet and I saw him walking down the street. Now, not totally crazy because people will walk, people will park further away and then walk to the restaurants. Then we go and have a drink, and then he forgot his wallet. Okay, I guess that I'm gonna pay. And he said, well, why don't we go to another place? I'm having such a great time. I really want to continue the date. I said, yes, that sounds good. Why don't we meet there? And he said, no, you valeted, so your car's right here. Why don't you just drive? So I drove us to another place, which meant that I also had to pay again. And now he has been comfortable in my car, right? So he is starting to create that sense of comfort, that sense of trust. He's escalating the situation with me. When we're out at the second place, I start asking about his career. Well, he actually didn't have the job that he said he had. It was a dream. It was something that he wanted to create, but he was actually in between jobs, okay? And this life that he said that he lived, well, he was in between lives, apparently, because he was living at this great place, but then he was kicked out. And so he's, really hoping to get this new place, but he doesn't have it yet. So right now he's couch surfing. So he doesn't have a place to live. He's homeless. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, you are unemployed and homeless, but you presented this fantasy of who you are. And I believed it. I asked so many questions. I did so much pre-qualifying, and somehow he was lying. And that's why pre-qualifying even isn't completely foolproof, because people can lie and you still have to be on your guard. When you meet them, you still have to be on your guard. You have to ask questions. You have to trust your intuition. Well, first you need to open up your intuition. You need to think. You need to use your logic when you're asking questions and think if things are lining up and consistent in their answers. And if they're not, red flag. Red flag, red flag, red flag. And then you need to stop the date. You don't have to keep on going. You can say, you know what? I'm seeing a lot of inconsistencies. It was really nice to meet you. I just don't feel like we're a romantic match. And you can end the date. Or you don't even have to say that. You can, say, thanks for a date. I've got to go. And then not communicate with them again. The point is, you've got to protect yourself. Maybe this guy, he made up these things because he was embarrassed of where he was in life and he didn't think he'd be able to go on a date with me had he not made the story up. Or maybe he was conning me and eventually he was planning on taking money from me or who knows what. The point is, he didn't, because I ended it. I told him there were too many inconsistencies and I stopped it. Now there are probably people who are sitting watching this video thinking, how did you not know ahead of time? How did you not see? And you're right. How did I not see? And I'm sure that there were red or at least orange or yellow flags that were being flown ahead of time that I didn't notice. Why not? Because I really wanted to believe him. I did. And sadly, he was lying and I was RomConned. And I'm telling you all of this because you could be RomConned too. So I'm giving you the stories, I'm giving you the advice, and there is so much more of this to learn. There is so much more to know, which is why I have an entirely other show called RomConned that is co-hosted with a criminologist friend of mine, Dr. Alex Del Carmen, and we dig into real rom-cons. We talk about what happened, we analyze them, we give tips on to how to avoid them, where it could have stopped along the way. Dr. Del Carmen really helps to open up and reveal the criminal mind so that we can see what they're actually thinking, what they're doing, what their strategies are, what their playbook is, so that we can protect our heart, our pride, our pocketbook, and our lives. Because, we want love, not lies. Thank you guys so much for being part of another date night. Please, if you liked anything that I said or you found it interesting or quirky, please like this. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please comment. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please send those questions. You can email me, laurel@laurelhouse.com, DM me on Instagram @laurelhouse, or ask the question in the comment section on YouTube. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great date night this week.